Alright, in this video I'm simply writing down what is the important things you need to know. Now as far as working trigonometric problems. This is what you need to know, and I do not use the unit circle. That's what most people use. I just don't like it. It's too much to remember, I think. But you can do all your trig function, solve all your trig problems that you use the unit circle for with this right here, right? And so these are the fundamentals. First thing are the definitions of our trig functions. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. What do we mean by that? If we have a triangle here, and here's our angle theta, relative to this angle, think of yourself standing here, looking out, this is the opposite side. The longest side, that's always the hypotenuse, and the remaining side is your adjacent. So that's relative to that angle there. That's the way it always works. So here, relative to 60 degrees, that is the opposite side. This is the adjacent, that's the hypotenuse. However, relative to 30 degrees, again, think of yourself looking out this way. Looking out this way, this is the opposite side, and this is the adjacent. That's relative to 30 degrees, right? So opposite and adjacent are relative to which angle you're talking about here, okay? So for example, what is the sine of 60 degrees? Let's just evaluate that. The sine of 60 degrees, and then let's do the cosine of 60 degrees. Then let's do the sine of 30 degrees. So what is the sine of 60? Well, relative to 60, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Relative to 60, this is the opposite hypotenuse. We get root 3 over 2. What is the cosine? Well, relative to 60, this is the opposite, this is the hypotenuse. That means the other side is the adjacent. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 1 over 2. What about sine 30? Well, relative to 30, this is the opposite side, this is the hypotenuse. So the sine of 30 is 1 over 2. So that's the basic idea of these trig functions. Now for sine, cosine, and tangent, they have what I call their companion functions, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. By definition, cosecant is 1 over sine. So if I do 1 over the opposite over hypotenuse, it just gets flipped and you get hypotenuse over opposite. Secant, by definition, is 1 over cosine. Flip this, you get h over a. Similarly for cotangent, flip the tangent and you get adjacent over opposite. So these right here, those are the definitions of our trig functions. Now if you don't like the unit circle, and I don't, these 4 things right here you need to know. Kind of memorize. If you just know these 4 things, then you can solve all the trig problems that you do with the unit circle by these 4 things right here. So you need to know the graph of sine x or sine theta. I'm calling this the x-axis, so it's sine x. Similarly here. But we can see here the sine of 90 pi over 2. The sine of 90 is 1. This height is 1. This is negative 1. This is 1. This is negative 1. So the sine of 90 is 1. What is the sine of pi, or the sine of 180? Well, that y value is 0. The sine of pi is 0. What's the sine of 3 pi over 2? Well, -1. What is the cosine of 0? The cosine of 0, our y value is 1. The cosine of 0 is 1. What's the cosine of pi? Well, the cosine of pi, x is pi. Our y value is -1. The cosine of pi is -1. So you got to be able to read these graphs. You got to know them, right? And second, just know these two triangles. This is the 45, 45, 90. The sides are 1, 1, root 2. 30, 60, 90. The sides are 1, 2, square root of 3. Square root of 3, just to remember what goes opposite 30. The hypotenuse is always the largest number, which is 2. What goes opposite 30? The 1 or root 3? 1 does. 1 is smaller than root 3, so that goes opposite the smaller of 30 or 60. So opposite 30 is 1 and opposite 60 is root 3. If you know these, you can solve all the trig problems without having to worry about the unit circle.